Because there's the issue of retention, but you're saying Accountant General said some items are going to be repaid. I don't know in what context. Repaid and paid, I don't know. Maybe you can just clarify through the PS.
Okay, I mean, we had, we paid through TSA. I'm sure you're aware of this. So what happens when we receive money, we prepare payment schedules through the system, which we submit to Ministry of Finance for payment. So at the end of the year, 2024, as shown in the query, 37 million was not paid. So out of that 37 million, the Office of the Accountant General only paid about 20 million. The balance was not paid, which transactions were reversed. The transactions for 17 million were reversed, so they were not paid. Yeah, and we didn't ask for retention or to ask for a budget provision in 2026, 2025, sorry.
Okay, so in short, the 17 million was not, payments were not honored.
No, they were not honored.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Mwila, is it progress? Failure to implement planned activities, you can proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. Exactly there, on failure to implement planned activities. On municipal infrastructure, bus stations, the target was to construct 3, and percentage of achievement is 0. I take note of the response that you have given, quoting the lengthy procurement process, 1, then delay or later approval at the Ministry of Justice, and then also you have alluded to the fact that the contractors could not move on site due to lack of funds. So I want to understand what were the terms of the contract, because it's one thing to move on site, and then it's another thing to receive payments as and when the works are progressing. So was it a term of the contract that they must be paid before they even move on site? Because the contracts were signed. Was it a condition that they must be paid on site? And further, why did the ministry go ahead and sign the contracts when there were no funds to pay the contractors? I submit.
Honorable Mukumbi, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, we note that your performance was, I think for lack of a better term, probably below par. At 42%. Below half. So, what could have attributed to this? Could it just be funding alone, or there are other issues? Could be human resource, or transportation, or that, because we note that of the activities that you had planned, you had only implemented about 3,408, leaving 2,268 activities unplanned. So where is the problem? I'm aligning this also to the funding that came through the ministry, and you had only remained, I think, with about 17 million. So, Chair, I submit.
Thank you. Honorable Daka, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Controlling Officer, I've noticed that on the rural crossing points construction and the rehabilitation, you are funding the contractors in October to do crossing points. The whole time, actually, after signing a contract, you couldn't honor your obligation. I'm sure here we are talking about the advance payments, because an advance payment, that's what only compels the contractor not to move on site if he's unpaid. Because part of the monies that are supposed to be used on mobilization, they come with the advance payment. So now, to you, the committee would want to understand how you can be dispersing funds in October to do the construction of crossing points, when we know very well that that basically is just basically at the onset of the rain season. How much progress would you expect a contractor to achieve when you are funding him at the point at which the rains are almost coming? Because in any contract management PS, time is of essence. These are some of the things that contractors take advantage of, because the time that is going to be lost in the rain season, this contractor has to recover it. And sometimes the contractors would want to recover that time with costs. Because it's not their problem that they only received the monies when it was at the onset of a rain season. Time is money. So we want to find out the rationale of how you stay all throughout the year, from January, maybe from March to October, just to start dispersing funds just at the onset of rain season. Does it make sense? Can you convince this committee what is the rationale behind you finding the contractors who are doing crossing points at the onset of the rain season? Chair, I submit.
Thank you. PS, you can proceed with those 3 questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for this opportunity, and indeed to the members for raising those concerns. I will address those from a general perspective, and especially those where we speak in terms of why signing contracts when funds are not available, and why only releasing resources for crossing points in October. Chairperson, the procurement process, based on the Act, is a lengthy process, because there are many procedural undertakings that you have to abide by in order to honor good governance, and within the context of transparency, accountability, fair competition, and those principles that will allow optimal utilization of resources. So because of that, it takes a bit of time. Now, activities that are to be undertaken in a particular year are budgeted in the previous year. So we already know, for example, the activities that will undertake in 2026. We knew what activities would undertake in 2025. Now, knowledge of a particular activity and funds actually sitting on a budget line for those activities don't necessarily take place at the same time. So the funding, for example, for crossing points, these funds were only released for that budget line at the time when they were being given out to those. So we depend on the funding cycle of the Ministry of Finance. So these funds were not just sitting at the ministry at the beginning of the year and only released in October. They were released when they were received from the Ministry of Finance. And the same goes with the question of why sign contracts when money is not there. Procurement processes will start because an activity has already been approved in a particular financial year. And in that year, we can go to tender, complete the procurement processes, and wait for funding in order for us to actually start those activities. And contractors, normally and typically, you'll find that the contract itself will stipulate the general conditions of payment, and some of those have to do with an advance payment. So contractors are not expected to mobilize until funds have been received, even though a contract has been signed, and until they've received an advance payment. And in terms of the ministry performance standing at 42%, I think it's also an arithmetic error to look at that 42% performance as a simplified average. I think a bit more due diligence should be undertaken in future to attach weights to different activities within those programs in order to understand the actual performance. So the average that you see as 42% is based on a standard weight of 1 for each and every activity. But if you have to attach importance, which is a much more complicated undertaking, because then you'll have to look at issues of impact, outputs, and so forth. So it becomes a bit more complicated. But we appreciate that at the time of reporting, at the time of audit, some of these activities were not yet funded and therefore could not be undertaken, and give a picture of performance that is subpar. Now, for very specific responses, I'd like to invite my Director of Rural Development to just address the issue of markets and the issue of crossing points. But I just thought I should give that general perspective in terms of framework of operations for resource use. Thank you.
Thank you, PS. Maybe before your director comes in, for me, I just want to understand, there's an issue of a 42%. Maybe you can just put us to speed as a committee for the aforesaid 42%. At that given time, maybe what was your performance in terms of a ministry's perspective? I do hear you saying a comprehensive analysis and attaching some weight, but what we want to understand is against your activities and your funding and whatever it is, your benchmarks, at what percentage were you sitting at the aforesaid time? You can bank that for now. Honorable Daka, you can ask, then PS, you take those 2 questions. We just want to understand from your perspective, because I think we want to move in the same direction, and also Auditor General will come in just to augment that. So, Honorable Daka, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. I think before the others directors come to give a detail to the question, I think I need to make my question very elaborate. PS, I'll give an example of my own constituency where we had 2 contracts on crossing points. That's on Namwera River and Mangwe River. The contracts were signed early this year. What the committee is failing to understand is, why should we sign a contract in January when we know very well that you can only fund or finance, or you can only disperse the funds in October. So we are looking at the time lost between January and October, because basically most of this, that's the first that's the first phase of loss of time, January to October, and the other phase is coming, because this contractor that you are paying in October, basically you just do mobilization, you just move some pieces of equipment here and there to site, but I can assure you he won't do any works. No any tangible physical works will be done until next year, March and April. So between October and April, there is another phase of loss of time, which is quite dangerous, because some contractors by then could have mobilized basically to come and claim, to make claims in terms of standing, and basically by that time to do any work, so can't talk about interest. So the standing time of equipment and personnel, he will basically submit a claim after those months from October to April. So why should government make itself vulnerable to such type of circumstances when it was avoidable? It's better you could have signed the contract in maybe in September, knowing very well that you only receive funding in October. This is what we are trying to labor here, to find out from the minister why such type of practices are being done in government. So before, as the directors are coming in, let them take into account is that this is what the committee is trying to find out. Why should things be done in this manner when you are very much aware about the funding cycles in your ministry? Chair, I submit.
Thank you. And suffice to what Honorable Daka is saying, PS, I think the planning for government now is that you only give a contract when funds are locked, they're available. I think that's how we started moving. So we do understand the issue of a fiscal space, and I think suffice to say that we also won't burden that so much on you. But when the ST comes, we want the ministry yourself and maybe PS technical to come also when it comes to do the treasury minute, because we want also to understand from his perspective his funding, because we're having these issues with a lot of ministries. So we want to understand what are the issues, because the releases against the funding, some of these things are not even correlating, and yet we are embarking on certain programs. So I think just to take note that when the ST comes at the last day of our meetings, maybe come accompany so that we can come, and we want to talk this together with the ST, yourselves as controlling officers, and understand from a perspective what is happening with the treasury in terms of funding, so that we also understand from that perspective. I think that's just for you to take note. PS, you can proceed with the two questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think your question is also indeed valid on the question of on the issue of performance. And on this, you'll have to give us time, because we have to give information based on how much money was received and what activities were funded as against the entirety of the financial year, because you can see that this performance is based on the entirety of the year. But if you want us to give at the time of the audit, then we'll have to look at what was funded at that time. And then the issue of crossing points, I sympathize with and empathize indeed with the honourable member there, that the funding in October is rather late, and especially for this critical activity of crossing points, because you need that infrastructure in time for the rainy season. But the funding, in terms of when Ministry of Finance will release resources, is not something that is known a priori. It's not information that you have. So you would appreciate, for example, that CDF 2025 has been fully funded, and the bulk of the funding for the 2025 CDF came within a very short space of time. Over 1.5 billion, for example, was released in 3 weeks, whereas there was pressure. So the funding really depends on what we understand on the pressure points that the Ministry of Finance faces, and we have no control over that. But I will indeed allow any one of my colleagues, chairperson, to just try and help giving a much more comprehensive and robust response.
Thank you. PS, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. I do recognize you, and through your committee. I just wanted to add to what PS admin, the controlling officer, has said in terms of our performance. So, Chairperson, every year we do a performance appraisal of the ministry. There is mostly one department that always drags the performance of the ministry down, and that is a department which formerly was known as Department of DHID, Housing and Engineering Department. Now it is known as the Department of Road Development. And the reason is simple, that 90% of the activities in that department has to do with municipal infrastructure, markets, bus stations, fire stations, and so on and so forth. And the persistent problem we've had is that sometimes you will get the money, in some fiscal year you will not get the money at all. Talking about the crossing points in particular, we had budgeted for the crossing points in 2024 and 2025, and the budget lines were committed. However, during the ministry was communicated to an effect that, first of all, the 2024 budget had not been released. The year ended, there was absolutely no disbursement towards the 2024 budget. And then in 2025, the budget that we had, we were later told that it was a misallocation. It was supposed to go elsewhere and not on the crossing points. I think it was supposed to be vehicle licensing. So we had to realign that one again. And this trend, Chairperson, is true for almost all the infrastructure programs that are housed at the ministry other than the CDF. So in as much as we have our timelines, the biggest disincentive is that sometimes we do not get this money on course. If I may preempt, Chairperson, as you go through the script, you will find that there's even an issue of drainages, which was really a matter of urgency because we procured during the cholera outbreak. But the funding to that particular emergency took 11 months or so to come. And there was literally nothing without the money that we could do. So I think that is a general principle that you see. And so even when you analyze our activity, our planned activity, most of them that have to do with infrastructure will either be at 0 or at 10%. And that is exactly the reason. I just thought that I could comment on what PS Admin said. I submit.
Thank you. I don't know who's talking about the 3 bus stations. Is it Director Infrastructure? Yes. You can proceed. Thank you for the submission. So Mpika, you're saying 48%. Okay. So Director, PS want also documentary evidence of those stages, as it were, on those bus stops. Okay. Some reports, I don't know if you call them, what you call them, progress reports, site progress reports on the 2. I think those are the ones, is it 3 or 2? It's 3 bus stations, but I think Director has given us 2. Is there any other? Yes, Chair, we have another one in Sesheke. Okay. And the fire station in Kasaba. Sesheke, okay. Thank you. Honorable colleagues, you can progress. Honorable Amnyema.
Chair, we move to the construction of chief palaces. I think the submission by the Ministry of Law Government on 17 palaces whose works commenced in 2023. And only 4 have been completed. I just want to understand, Chair, on the 17, there are 2 palaces that are at 0% for more than 12 months after the signing of the contract. Now, I want to understand why these 2 particular palaces have not commenced 12 months after signing the contract. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. PS, we can proceed. This one is together with the, I think, crossing points which we, I think, asked earlier. So maybe we can, the aforesaid, I think these are the ones which were done by a private contractor, if I'm not mistaken, according to the submission.
Yes.
Yes, PS, you can proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Through you, may I invite my Director of Development to respond?
Director, you can proceed. Please switch on the mic and then it's not working, or just hold on. because we need the verbatim. It's okay. Maybe director, you can come and make your submission from this side. You can just move a bit from there. You can transfer it. You can sit there. That's where you're supposed to sit, director. We shifted where the mic was not working.
Apologies, Chair.
You can proceed.
Thank you very much. So I was saying, Chair, that you may wish to note that those two palaces that are at 0%, one of them, Chief Mono, we had signed a contract. However, the contractor could not perform based on the conditions set out in the contract, so we terminated the contract for Chief Mono and we started reprocuring another contractor. For the Chief Shmukumunami, we did the tender process. After doing the evaluations, there was no responsible bidder. Again, we had to start the procurement process, and this is when we got the contractor. The contract was signed in September this year. So the contract was not signed last year, it was signed in September this year, and the contractor has just mobilized. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Daka.
Thank you, Chair. We are a committee of facts, Chair. So anything that is submitted to this committee, you have to provide evidence. Would want to Director, we want documentary evidence to the submission that you have just made, like citing that you terminated the contract. I mean, you are supposed to make submission of the evidence that indeed the termination was done. And Chair, permit me to proceed to the palaces that were done by the Zambia Correction Services.
So before we proceed, Director, would want the contract which was terminated and the contract which has been signed, which was signed in September, for verification by Auditor General, as well as the issue of the three bus stations, that is Chavuma, Mpika, and Sesheke, or the ones which have only been cited in the report, so that they can be verified by the Office of the Auditor General, either progress reports and contract as it were, and the ones which were terminated should be provided. Auditor General, Honorable Daka, you can proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. Before I proceed to ask a question to the Zambian Correction Services, I want to admit, Chair, that the workmanship does to the palaces the palace that they are doing in my constituency, the workmanship is quite one. Before I proceed to ask a question, the workmanship is quite good. As about facts, the works which are being done by our local contractors on other CDF contracts, we want to admit that we are not just praising, but we are seeing. We are on the ground physically. We are seeing what is happening, comparable to the other CDF projects. For the Zambia Correctional Service, quality or workmanship that have displayed on the palaces is quite good.
You can proceed. You can proceed.
However, Chair, what is of concern is the speed that these palaces are being constructed. PS, can you put to speed our committee with regards to why is it that the speed is quite slow? The palaces are being constructed. That is affecting, because as with regards to funding, we receive funding just like any other CDF project. But why is it that you find that projects which were started, 2025 projects, most of which, like in my constituents, have been completed. But the project that we started in 2023 or so, up to now hasn't been completed. What is it that is a problem with regards to the progression of these palaces generally countrywide? I submit, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Mukumbi.
Chair, I think we are still on customary governance, and while we're discussing the palaces,
Yes.
there's also another issue to do with boundary mapping there, where you are saying 20 missing chiefdoms, there are 20 missing chiefdoms in the 1958 boundary map. What is the meaning of this? How can they be missing? Because I believe the 1958 boundary was already done and dusted, so all you could have done is just to reprint. Unless you are coming up with new information, then you would say they are missing. So were they missing in 1958 or they are missing now? What are you trying to undertake here? Chair, I submit.
Honorable Mwila and Honorable Lungu can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. On the construction of chiefs' palaces by private contractors, the finding on the failure to engage new contractors for the construction of chiefs' palaces, the ones affected here, for the palaces for Chief Tafuna in Mpulungu, Chief Mpande, and then Chief Mwamba. So these contracts were terminated, and the submission is that the procurement process to engage new contractors is underway. But I want to find out, first of all, the reasons for termination of these contracts, and what has become of the advance payment, because all the three received advance payments, different amounts. So what has happened to the advance payments that were paid to these people, and the reasons for the termination? I submit.
Thank you. Honorable Lungu.
Chair, I still have a concern on the crossing points. Controlling officer, I want to appreciate first for Treasury to release funds for crossing points that I marked to be worked on. My concern is on 14 contracts for construction and rehabilitation of 70 crossing points. You must be aware that this is land season, and I come from a rural constituency in Kapoche, Sinda district. As I'm talking to you, the time that this news broke up, we went to our people. We informed them that your government is going to work on these crossing points. Now that it's raining, and some of these crossing points are borders on the our school-going children, where they cannot cross when it has rained heavily. What is it that you are going to implement or provide as an urgent measure, as this is so critical to our community? Chair, I submit.
Thank you. PS, you've got those 4 questions. And Zambia Correction Service, you've got that commendation from Honorable Daka. And a question to that effect. And there's a question from Honorable Mukumbi on boundary mapping for chiefdoms and missing chiefdoms. Please take note, he's a chief on the lighter note, so he's asking that question for you to, he's got interest. And Honorable Mwila. So PS, you can proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, once again, and honorable members for those questions. In terms of the picture to do with the chief's palaces that are being constructed by the Correctional Service, I think the position is much more positive than I think was reflected in the Auditor General's report at the time. So in other words, there's been substantial progress between the time that the report was prepared and to date. So we will start. I will invite the Commissioner General, Zambia Correctional Service, first to just give us an overview of a breakdown of where we are with the chief's palaces, the 80 contracts that were provided. The contract that was provided to do the 80 Chiefs Palaces, where we are, and what the roadmap looks like, to just give that picture. And then he will discuss the issues that surrounded the delay, as it were, around that. On the issue of the missing chiefdoms, so-called missing chiefdoms, I'll invite my colleague, PS Technical Services, to address that. And then for the reasons of termination of the contracts, I'll invite Director of Rural Development as well as our Head of Procurement to just address that, but also just to highlight that although it has been reported that the contracting process for the new contracts are underway, we want to report that it was concluded, the contracts were signed, and the urgent measures to do the crossing points, we'll discuss that as well. I'll invite my Director of Rural Development. But through you, Chairperson, we'll proceed in that order. I will start by inviting Commissioner General to just highlight.
Thank you. Commissioner General can proceed.
Chairperson, members, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity also to appear before the Honorable House and explain ourselves on the progress of the Chiefs Palaces across the country, or 7 provinces that we are building. Last week, Chairperson, we woke up to social media sermons by your good office here. We were worried throughout the week, and we asked ourselves, but what wrong have we done? Honorable Dakai's submission is very relieving. We told ourselves this morning that as far as we know, I think we are trying our best, and I think it is being confirmed. We are grateful for that positive feedback. Where are we today? A lot can be mentioned from where we started, but maybe for the sake of time, we wanted to summarize it this way, that as of today, we were given a total number of sites to the tune of 80. So the total number of sites that were handed over to us was 77. 3 are yet to be handed over. And that we want to talk about the completion. 14 are at 100%.
Sorry, Commissioner, yes, Honorable Aminu.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, the Commissioner just assist us on the pages on so that we can move together, since they
provided this.
Yes, it's being projected there, so we just wanted to make reference. Maybe just as which page. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner, you can take note of that so that we just move together. Okay. I think there's a projection there on, I don't know if you're the one you are going to speak to, or... Okay, I can proceed.
That's the one I'm speaking to. I just got that summary so that we could quickly. So I was saying that following that projection, which is item 3, 14 palaces are ready at 100%. In the report, we were told that only 1 palace had been completed. We took a position, Chairperson, with our employer, Ministry of Local Government, that we are not going to announce the completion of these palaces in piecemeal, hence that which was announced earlier. So the rest are just being completed at the right time. The nation shall be informed with the right officers that will make that pronouncement. Then cumulative number of sites to be handed over by the end of the year, which is 31st December this year, will be 32 in total. Then
so by December it will be 32 in total.
32 in total.
Okay.
Cumulatively, by 31st December, 31st January, they will go to 53 to be ready to be handed over. We move on. 28th February 2026, 61 will be handed over. 31st March 2026, 66 will be handed over. April 30th, 2026, 77 that are in our hands will all be handed over to the chiefdoms. We will remain with the 3 that are not yet handed over for different reasons. Our employer should know. That is 1, Chief Mushili, then we have Chief Gawaundi, and also there will be replacement of Chief Hamusonde. Paramount Chief Gawaundi. Thank you, Chairperson. Chief Hamusonde in Monze. So that makes 80 as a contract that we signed. Our summary and submission. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that submission. Commissioner, questions, honorable colleagues? There was a question from Honorable Daka, Commissioner, that why have we delayed in terms of, we do hear that you have got 14 which are 100% complete as we speak. Then cumulative by December, which is next week month end, we have 32 which will be complete, and then cumulatively following your order the way you've highlighted. So a question from Honorable Daka, why have we, maybe perhaps we also would like to know the contract period, if it's in all the 80 or it's per contract, or what is a contract period for the aforesaid 80 chiefs palaces. Maybe we begin from there so that we are fair to Zambia Correction Services, and then now we can tackle the issue of what has necessitated the delay. There are a lot of factors, with some of the factors also the ministry also that beyond them. It could be funding, it could be, so we want to understand, maybe you bring us to speed. That's just to amplify Honorable Daka's question. Honorable colleagues, you can also ask if there are any questions. Okay, so yeah, the pending question. So there's that question. Then there's the very, very serious matter on the chief mapping, which Honorable Amukumbi has asked. So PS, DG, Commissioner General can proceed with that. After that, then we can have the issue of the mapping, then the crossing point issues. I think PS had segmented the questions and allocated. So those who allocated questions, you take up the questions after after Commissioner General. Commissioner General can proceed.
It is CG, Chairperson.
CG. Okay. Commissioner General.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I had wanted to allow that the engineer could speak to the time frame because of the adjustments that we have also gone through as a result of main factors. I think they will come in later. Like you have highlighted, the reasons for the delay are varied. And to highlight some of them, obviously, cash flow has been a matter. The service chairperson does not have alternative sources of finance. We are a new construction industry, still very highly dependent on the funding from Ministry of Finance. Being a government institution too, I hope that could be understood. To overcome this challenge, we engaged the client to boost their project by way of advance payment. Cash projection was drawn with a roadmap on how the money would be used and the milestones that would be achieved. Based on the same, Chairperson, 51 million was paid, which has highly boosted the momentum of the project. We believe that when we have a health coffer in the future, as we get such lucrative contracts, we must say, the picture and the rate at which we deliver works will be very different. There have been succession disputes and in many chiefdoms, and this has caused the delay. We couldn't move because we were waiting for the families to settle down with who was going to be appointed the chief. Up to now, some are still in that state. We also had a special case of Western Province where E had to give consent to the Kuta had to give consent for us to move in to construct those palaces that were earmarked for the province. So maybe a month ago now, that's when these were given to us. We are mobilizing and will soon be on site. Only 2 are being attended to in that province, and they are also quite advanced. We began the works in February 2024. In many, you have mentioned here, crossing points. The terrain was very bad in many sites. We couldn't move. That indeed was a reason why maybe some were delayed. Procurement processes. We have no control over procurement processes. The process is tedious. We have to follow all the principles and the rules that have been put on the ground for transparency and all the governance reasons that were highlighted by the PS. In a nutshell, Chairperson, these amount to the reasons why there has been this seeming delay in the delivery of the palaces. May I invite the engineer to highlight on the time frames that have been set.
Thank you. The engineer can proceed. Where's the engineer? Introduce yourself and you proceed with your submission.
Thank you very much, Chair. Senior Assistant Commissioner Engineer Njau, Assistant Director from Corrections. I think you wanted to know whether we are still in the contract duration. Yes, we are. But like you've heard, we still in seeing ourselves applying for more time to be able to take care of those projects that we are just about to start now. Because the project as it is now, the contract as it is running now, is supposed to be ending by the 31st of this December this year. Maybe I thought I should answer it that way. Thank you very much.
Yes. Maybe just how long we know it's ending the way we were 31st December, and what are some of the factors which made some of these projects delay? I think that's what we want you to elaborate more as you make your submission. Commissioner General has brought some of those to speed, but you as an engineer who's now because you report into the Commissioner General, which want us to tell us what are some of these issues, and if also you've also taken necessary measures to apply for contract extension. We want to treat you as a business, not as quasi-government to government, just as a business. That's why we want to treat you. We want to make sure that all things have been taken into perspective. So you can proceed, sir, through Commissioner General, through the PS.
Thank you very much, Chair. Back again through the PS. The story will not really change from what the Commissioner General has already said, together with the PS. Technically, there are certain issues that we may not be able to accelerate even if everything is in place. For example, we have already heard that certain sites were just handed over to us. So even if we have the capacity to mobilize on certain sites, but as long as the consent were not given to us, we were unable to do that. And so these are some of the issues that have kept the contracts running up to where we are. But I think going forward, we must meet our deadline as per schedule that we have submitted on our presentation there. Shortly, I think that's what I would submit.
Your engineer is not answering Commissioner General questions. Have you carried out necessary liaison with the ministry? Your contract, this is November, you've got a month. Have you written that this contract is coming to an end? We need extension up to next year, December, or next year, whatever, April, according to your submission. That's what we are asking. You are the engineer, you are the one who's in charge. And yeah, because we need that evidence that has been done. We don't want Auditor General goes back and says the contract had expired, there was no coordination, ministry was not written to, when they are this site that we do understand the predicament and what you are going through as a correction service. Like Honorable Daka has said, you are doing well, but we want to treat you as a business. We want to see that certain issues have been put in place. So, have you written, you have not written, what is the status, as it were? Because we want to compile, so that when we are seated with the Secretary to Treasury, we will tell him, why are you not funding the ministry? What reasons are we going to give him? No, they are doing well, but we want those pertinent issues so that we can also speak on your behalf. When we sit with the Secretary to Treasury, you can be funded on time. These are important projects. So I think it's important that you give us an nitty-gritties. If you don't give us, you only give the Commissioner General. You are under oath here. We've given you immunity. Speak. Tell us if there are anything, what you are going through, and those things we've asked you, so that we can make progress. Things are done as quickly as possible.
Very much. I think without wasting your time, that has not yet been done. But I also want to assure the committee that we work as one. Us and the ministry, we are working as one. And so I don't expect that to be a predicament really going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any clarifications, Honorable colleagues? Honorable Hamnyima.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Commissioner General, for submission. You're not one, you have been contracted to do a job, so no. Here we are treating them as a business, a viable business. Now, CG, my concern is, for example, Lunga, the terrain. You had an issue there with mobilization of material, as the site, could only be accessed by pontoon via water. So the issue there was you're supposed to, I'm sure the ministry has engaged you to subcontract or to scope the works. You have the same problem in Nalolo West Bank when you go there, because you have to cross the Zambezi. So my concern here, CG, is in terms of these terrain issues, how will you address this? And I just want to know from PS also why it took time for these particular ones, especially like this one, which site was already granted. It was just an issue of getting the material across. What is the plan for these specific areas where you can only transport through water transport? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll allow Commissioner General on this one, then we follow the order on the other questions so that we don't leave our brothers behind, especially on the chief boundary. It's the same? Okay, Honorable Daka, you can ask your question, which is still on the chief's palaces.
Chair, thank you very much. Mine is just a concern from our engineer. When you have been contracted, Minister of Local Government becomes your client, and as such, all the contractual terms and conditions have to be respected. And on top of it, contract management is very cardinal with regards to the delivery of any project. So if by now you haven't given any indication of how much extensions quantifying, and the minister hasn't approved, to us there is no feasible, viable extension right now. Even the commissioner is indicating to us that they will go up to beyond the 31st of December, To us, that doesn't occur because the client hasn't yet granted you an extension. Legally, there's nothing to us. The contract will expire. We've heard, Chairman, so many times here where we belabor on issues to do with the expiry of contracts. Because the moment the contract expires, which means everything becomes invalidated, you cannot do anything on that particular contract. So it's just important, Chair, to comment that let them take contract management very seriously so that we deliver. You have already started delivering qualitable works. So there's no reason where you should have flaws in contract management. So it's just a comment, Chair. I submit.
Thank you. Commissioner General, through the PS, there's a question from Honorable Amnyima, I think on Lunga, and the other, maybe we can react to that, then now revert back to the other two questions, if there won't be any further question on the Chief's palaces. And also I want to know, Commissioner General, why the Chief Palace for Chief Tafuna has not been constructed up to now. I come from there. Thank you. You can proceed.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The question from Honorable Munyima was on Chief Mbulu and Chief Kasomalunga on the lake. By their position, this is why up to now they are still outstanding. We were still grappling with how we're going to handle them. But I think we have reached an understanding with our employer. It is very expensive to do those two sites. That's a reality. They were all costed uniformly. We needed to mobilize materials to that site. We have to hire a barge. Extremely expensive. We thought that we were going to write and explain that those two sites be upgraded, is it, in terms of cost. But we were told that contractual obligations do not allow that. What we needed to do was to ask for a termination, technically, so that maybe we are recontracted, retendered at a different rate. So I think there has been that discussion and understanding. We are yet to submit that request so that that process is followed. Then we'll set the new time frames for the completion of the two. Thank you for mentioning Nalolo. I heard. We are yet to face that now that they have come in our hands. But we are determined that all of them will be delivered. Thank you very much. Chief Tafuna. Is Chief Tafuna on our list?
No.
We are told that the private contractor is handling Chief Tafuna. Otherwise, if they fail, we are available. Thank you very much.
PS will answer that one for Chief Tafuna. PS, we can proceed now with the, unless honorable colleagues there are any other clarifications on the presentation by, can we proceed with the other questions, PS, on the Chief's boundary, new chiefdoms and the crossing points? I think there were 2 or 3 questions, if I'm not mistaken. You can proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. Indeed, Chief Tafuna was under the private contractor, and the contract was terminated due to the non-performance of the contractor. But like PS admin submitted, the procurement process has been concluded, and very soon the contractor will be mobilizing to site on Chief Tafuna's. Chairperson, before 2021, government undertook to enhance the 1958 chiefdom boundary map in the work of escalation in traditional boundaries. The 1958 chiefdom boundary map, Chairperson, as you know, is the only official map available to government that is used in the determination of chiefdom boundaries. Even our justice system relies on that particular map. However, the way it had been drawn by the colonial government, it was very difficult for citizens and ordinary people to use and relate to those boundaries because they are just lines on a paper. So towards 2022, government undertook an exercise to enhance the map by way of superimposing physical features on the boundaries for the purposes of easy identification. So they added rivers, they added mountains, they added physical features that made it easier at a glance for our traditional authorities to be able to use and see this is where my chiefdom is. When that enhancement happened, we then decided in 2022 to distribute the maps and make them available to the chiefdoms, because that was the intention of government all along, so as to address the conflicts that were escalating around traditional boundaries. When the distribution was done countrywide, we then noticed that these maps, the 1958 boundary maps, had three key challenges. The first challenge, Chairperson, was the fact that the word chiefdoms prior to independence in 1964 had been abolished by the colonial masters, and these chiefdoms are not even appearing on the general list of government of chiefdoms. However, for one reason or the other, the abolished chiefdoms still remained on the 1958 chiefdom boundary map. The second challenge, Chairperson, was that there are chiefdoms that we know today do exist, and when you go on the ground, you will find the chiefdom is there, the chief is there, they even know where their boundaries are, and yet on the 1958 chiefdom boundary map, they are not appearing. The third challenge, Chairperson, we faced was that there are chiefdoms that neither exist nor existed then, but they appear on the map as a chiefdom called Barton. I think it's in the Eastern Province, and that chiefdom is not known. And these issues, when they came, required that they be addressed. And part of addressing these issues was to start by ensuring that the chiefdoms that are known that they do exist and the chiefs are there, they are even on the government list of subsidies, should then be factored into the map. And obviously that process was, although it was planned by the Ministry of Local Government, it turned out that it needed a lot more than just Ministry of Local Government. It required the involvement of the Office of the Minister of Lands through the Surveyor General. It required the House of Chiefs and indeed the traditional leadership to draw consensus and then develop a roadmap on how this can be handled. Now, Chairperson, you know the sensitivities that surround these issues of traditional boundaries and chiefdoms. That process is still underway. A committee of ministers was constituted by a cabinet which comprises the Minister of Local Government, the Minister of Lands, the Minister of Justice, the Surveyor General, and the House of Chiefs, among others, to look at how best this issue can be handled. So the issue is still being handled, and I want to report, Chairperson, that it may take longer than we had anticipated, because obviously the sensitivities around it and the consensus that is required to be met before these maps can be redefined, as it were. Chairperson, I submit.
Thank you. Honorable Mkumbi, you no further question? Crossing points? Please, you can go ahead, Honorable.
Well, I think in general was why those 3 contracts were terminated and what has become of the advance payments that were done.
Thank you. PS, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. May I invite Director to...
Director, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, PS. The PS indicated that the reasons why these contracts were terminated was due to poor performance. If you recall, the contracts were signed over a year, they could not move. So we terminated because of the poor performance. Secondly, yes, the advance payments were paid, and before we terminated, we wrote to the insurance companies that insured the works, so that we can retrieve we can be refunded, the ministry can be refunded the money that was paid to the contractors. I submit, Chair.
Honorable Daka, Honorable Omnyima.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Mine is a follow-up question over Honorable Muna's question. We want to find out on the status whether the bonds or the guarantees have been encashed fully, because you haven't indicated to us. You just said you wrote to the insurance companies that provided the securities. We want to find out what is the status of the recovery. That's a very important matter that we can just leave just like that. So what is the status of the recovery?
Thank you. Honorable Omnyima.
Chair, it's the same question I had for the one Honorable Daka has raised.
Thank you. Through the PS, the Director can proceed and put us to speed on that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the question from the honorable members. Yes, the first procedure is once the contract has been terminated. Before we terminate, we write to the insurance informing them that this is going to happen and we are going to recover our money. Then the next step is now to engage. So we've had the engagement with them. We're having the final meeting on Thursday this week, so we can give them the account details and then they pay. I submit, Chair.
Thank you. Auditor General, verification. We want, once that information has been provided together with the other information I think we've highlighted, then it can be verified as it were. PS, issue of crossing points, I think raised by Honorable Lungu.
Thank you very much. I think, yeah, indeed, the question is about what urgent measures have been put in place. I'll again invite Director of Road Development to address that.
Director, can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. So for now, what we're advising the local authorities is that for those crossing points that are really urgent, they can use the available resources, as we are still in the process of procuring the contractors to work on those crossing points. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Daka. Then we make progress.
Further questioning on the issues to do with the crossing, going by the response that we have received. The question was, you know the effects of not doing these crossing points on time. Because you have situations where our school-going children start failing, even teachers. Not out of their wish, you find that they stop working. In the rural area, it's very common where you find teachers in the rain season stopping teaching, basically because they can't cross to where the schools are. So the question was, what urgent measure or what temporal measure are you going to put to ensure that the school-going children and even the teachers access the facilities regardless the fact that it will be raining? Have we, in short, maybe I can go direct. Are there any provisions in the contract that allows the contractor to provide accessibility to these facilities which is not attached to the actual construction? Mr. Chairperson, I submit.
Thank you, Honorable Mkumbi.
Chair, on the same Chief's paralysis. I'm sure we have like how many? Maybe over 230 chiefs in Zambia, plus 280 something, isn't it? And the government is only constructing 109 palaces. So meaning we still have a huge number of chiefs that do not have. Where I'm coming from, there are 4 chiefs in my constituency, and only one, I think, they're only building one palace for one chief, meaning 3 haven't yet received. So when are we rolling the second phase so that all the chiefs are catered for? I've just received a message from one of my chiefs saying, hey, can you ask the PS there, when am I receiving my house? I submit.
Thank you. PS, those are questions. You can proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will answer the second phase of the Chiefs Palaces. In fact, as a matter of fact, when we designed the project, the idea was that we do this project in 3 years and complete all the 286 chiefs. As you are aware, this program started sometime in 2010. Between 2010 and 2022, I think we only managed to deliver about 17, if not 19. My directors can correct me with the numbers, but I think about less than 20 palaces in the space of 8 years. And so the idea now was that every year we reduce the deficit. Within 3 years we complete. However, as has been discussed here, it has taken us now 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, to finish that. We have learnt our lessons. Going forward, we'll be going into the procurement of the second phase of Chiefs Palaces within this year. And the idea is that we take another reasonable number, 100 plus, and with all the lessons we have learned now in implementing this project, we are hopeful that we should be able to deliver this one a little faster than we have delivered on the previous one. And so the second phase may not complete all the chiefs, but surely by the time we do the third phase, it means that all the chiefs will be catered for, and then we'll go backwards now, because the initial phase only provided for a single palace, just one house. It had no supporting infrastructure such as the Kapaso's houses, and as well as the office for the chief and the water reticulation. So in the third phase now, we'll go backwards and attend to those that were constructed between 2010 and 2021 and provide those supporting infrastructure. Chairperson, I submit, and I want to seek your indulgence if I could leave my able PS admin with the team.
Thank you, PS. PS, we can have the director infrastructure. For your question, that's now answering the question, because Honorable Daka has raised, has amplified that question. Another question. Okay, let's tackle with the Honorable PS. You stay just for a few minutes. Director, through the PS, issue of Honorable Daka crossing points, teachers not going to teach.
Thank you, Chair. The ministry is aware of this challenge, and that's why we started this program of constructing the crossing points across the country. I needed to, I think, notify the honorable member that we haven't yet signed the contracts for these others. If you recall, the PS had indicated that in this year's budget, we didn't have a budget line for crossing points. So we had to discuss and negotiate with Ministry of Finance to vary some of the funds within our budget so that we can have money for crossing points. This variation was only approved about somewhere there, and that's how we started the procurement of these others, hoping that once we complete, maybe some of the sites can be attended to. On top of that, Chair, you may wish to note that as the Minister has been sending monies to the local authorities, this money is called motor vehicle licensing. So some of these urgent issues, I think the Council can tap into that money. Just last week, Chair, we sent 1 million kwacha to a number of councils for them to deal with such issues. I submit, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Lungu, you can ask your question to Honorable to the PS Technical Services.
Chair, thank you very much. PS, first I was wanted to find out the 3 palaces contracts were terminated 8 months, and from 8 months to date, what has been so difficult for you to engage the other contractor? And also from the submission of the CG, I'm happy to hear from our colleague from Chadiza to recommend that you are doing a good job. Please keep it up. One of the things that you have complained is due to funding, lack of funding. The local government hasn't been giving you enough funds, which we want to hear from. How are you going to improve going forward so that the institution, the good work that they are doing, they should continue? Then PS, away from this, Kapoche constituency is one of the constituencies which hasn't received ambulance up to date. Any comment on the ambulance?
Point of order. Can you ask that question? It's not in the switch off the mic. It's not in the Auditor General's report. So I'll allow you to go with the PS outside once we finish, and then you can discuss with no immunity on you or the PS. And you can PS. There's that question, I think, which was tackled somehow for the 3 palaces, but I just want you to combine with Lady Diana drainage and culverts. The contract was you did limited bidding just to expedite the works for 4 months, but however this contract now went into 12 months as it were. Now I want us to we'll be winding up soon because DMMU did not give you money or whatever the case. I just want to bring us to speed what transpired, especially that you have the PS who's former DMMU national coordinator, so you've got everything in house. So please, PS, you can proceed and tell us what transpired with this Kanyama Ledana drainages, and also I don't know, PS Technical, you speak on the 3 palaces, but which I know you've tackled, but maybe just to highlight issues which Honorable Lunga has brought in. As we allow you soon to take leave and go and discuss the ambulance outside with him. You can proceed, PS.
Chair, thank you very much for your guidance. So maybe let me start with the Lady Diana drainage. So indeed, we procured the Lady Diana under the declaration of the emergency, and we used the most expeditious means of procurement, because as we know, what was obtaining in that particular part of the constituency of Lusaka in Kanyama needed immediate attention. And once the contractor mobilized and went to site, then funding became a big issue, and I think we have added some documents in our submission to illustrate to what extent the ministry went to request that the release of funds for the Lady Diana drainage be expedited, among other drainage works that we are doing, until it reached a point that the contractor demobilized from site, because it became more expensive for them to stay at site without doing any work. And In as far as I can recollect, and my directors can correct me, I think we were only able to get the money to get on the Lake Diana works this year, just about a month or under a month ago. Sorry? About September. That's when we got the money for... So the story is the same, Chairperson, that in as much as we want are not supported as called limitedness, there's only this much that we can do. I think we have which includes the procurement funding to these priority are not going. So we have specific priority projects, which includes the Chief's Palaces. Chairperson, I submit.
Thank you. PS, lastly, the honorable member wants to hear about the 3 palaces. I think he asked, that's I think lastly on that. Then the ambulance will be outside.
Thank you, Chairperson. So the question was why it took us long?
Yes, 8 months.
To procure yes, 8 months. First of all, to acknowledge that it was indeed a long period of time to take 8 months to procure. And without washing dirty linen in public, Chairperson, we did have internal administrative challenges in as far as procurement was concerned, during that period a good number of projects had lagged behind, and but we detected that and administrative measures were taken, and I think now we are back on track in terms of procurements. And this is the reason, Chairperson, even the 3 contracts that have been highlighted in the Auditor General's report, the Mwamba, the Tafuna, and the other one, during this short period of time when we took administrative measures, we have been able to close these procurements. And so an assurance to the committee is that going forward, we doubt that procurement rigidity. We all know, even what I'm going to procure. So I cannot come here next year and say, oh, I delayed to procure Chief's Palaces because of procurement rigidities. I knew I was going to procure. I had a procurement plan. So I think that was an internal issue, but we did address it. Chairperson, I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Wamnyima, last question.
Chair, I'm going to the last item. On loans and investments. I don't understand these interests being paid. Maybe I think because these interests on the contract.
Come with the keys for the ambulance.
These interests on the contracts, Chair. I would like to believe that there was guidance on government not going into contracts that have interest and penalty clauses. So these interests that are being paid, what interests are they? Maybe not understanding did the ministry engage with contractors with contracts with interest and penalty clauses?
Thank you. PS, you can proceed on This is our last item, funding from A21, loans and investments, West for expenditure.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'll invite Director of Finance to speak to that.
Director of Finance.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wish to state that these are very old contracts. The date is historical. They go as far back as 2014, maybe even beyond. And at that time, the contracts which were signed, I think there was an interest component. And because we delayed in paying because of funding issues, there was that interest which was charged. Yeah, that's these, as you can see, they are old. They were transferred to Head 21. So that's under Ministry of Finance. They are the ones who are liquidating these arrears which we have. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do understand that most of these contracts have got certain clauses. I think both sides, if government doesn't perform, or if indeed the contractor doesn't perform, you charge liquidated damages. I think that is our last item, PS, and the Commissioner General. Let me take this opportunity. Your main query was actually on the Chief's Palaces, and these others were just small issues, but we do appreciate, I think, the presentation from the Commissioner General on the progress report for the aforesaid Chief's Palaces which are being constructed countrywide. I think our role is just also to ensure that we hear from both sides, which you've given your submission from your perspective, and also the challenges with funding, I think, which we are aware of the fiscal space as we proceed. But suffice to say that I think we started that program, and our role also will be to engage the Secretary to Treasury that, like the Ministry has said, they are hedging funds for those programs, that they are funded in good time so that they can expedite the process, and also it gives you ample time for planning as correctional services to ensure that you deliver the much needed palaces in so many areas. We do understand terrain is not easy because it's different geographical locations in the country, and I think just mobilization of materials and all that is not easy. So we do sympathize with you, but notwithstanding that, you are also dotted around as correctional services. So it's that's why you're able to perform the way we are performing. PS, we grateful, and I think what is important for us moving forward is to ensure that even with contractual obligations, especially for bus stations, they are expedited, and also issue of those terminated contracts, we don't want to lose money. As a ministry, if we need to encourage certain bonds, let's proceed in the quickest possible time so that we can mitigate government from losing funds, as it were. All in all, we are grateful, PS, for your submission with your team, and we've seen the reduction in the queries. So we hope and implore you that you continue in the same trajectory to ensure that things are done in accordance with the stipulated guidelines, as it were. So we're grateful to that, and we thank you most sincerely, the Commissioner General and your team. And do not shy away, please keep engaging the ministry and do those contracts extension is important, so that even as you are working together, but it's important that you are two legal personalities, as it were. So it's important to have those extensions for record's sake, and also any collaborations, write-ups, deviations, and all that. I think they're important to be compiled together, as it were, because government is a perpetual succession. We don't know which CG will be there tomorrow. We don't know which chairman will be there tomorrow. So it's important that there's trail to that effect to ensure that we are in accordance with the stipulated guidelines in terms of contracts management, as it were. So we're grateful so much, PS, and your team. thank you so much, and the immunity has been lifted. We know you've been here since morning, so we'll offer you some tea again, because here we just offer tea for your lunch, unless you are saying the ministry is offering this committee lunch of the ministry, but we'll ask you for which budget line. So we are very grateful, and immunity has been lifted. PS and the Commissioner General, thank you so much for coming before this honorable committee. Thank you so much, and have a good afternoon.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for still being with us on Parliament Television. That was the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development, and the Commissioner General, who are just from making a submission to the Public Accounts Committee. That's for the consideration of the report of the Auditor General on the accounts of the report for the financial year ended 31st December 2024. The committee also did receive a submission from the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. And from me, Tazapiri, I would urge you to continue watching Parliament Television, the only station that brings Parliament closer to you.